So we've got our tube to the point where it will move across the screen, and when it touches the other side it will appear back on this side. Now the next thing I'd like to do is make it so that this tube will actually, rather than always appearing straight in the centre of this banner, as we know from the original Flappy Birds, we actually want the top tube to be appearing in a random position between here and the bottom. Now, to be able to do that, we're going to need to use something that will allow us to get a random number and then change the Y position of this shape so that we can choose where it gets plotted, remembering that we're actually plotting the top left corner of this shape. So how do we do that? Well, why don't we just see if we can get a random number and change that Y position to it. Now, before we go into all of this idea, I'm just noticing that we're getting to a stage where we're going to end up having a lot in our while loop. What I much prefer to have is a separate functions, or what they're called in Small Basic is subroutines, to do different jobs for us. Now, I'm going to have a new sub here. It's a little mini program called tube X, and this sub is going to just do this job of changing this X position and moving it if it goes to the other end of the screen. So I'm going to take all of this section here by cutting that out, and I'm going to paste that into this section in here. Now, this might not seem to be hugely different to you, but I think it really helps when you can see your while loops ordering easier. Because I've made that a sub, I need to end that sub as well, so I'm just going to come in here and say end sub. So this is just a job now that will run. This will actually never execute now, just as a reminder of programming construct. You'll notice that the shape actually never went and did what we asked it to do. It just did this once and it just keeps drawing it. The X position, tube X, never changed because this job never ran. So after I tell it to draw the shape there, I'm just going to run that function. And to run that function or subroutine, I just type the name of it, tube X. And we'll notice this little telephone symbol appears next to the name of the function. That telephone is just there to symbolize the word call. When we run programs or functions in programming, we generally call it, we say we call that function or we call that subroutine, which just means to run it. You'll notice I've also got a variable called tubex, and that can be confusing, so it might be better if I kind of make it into more of a verb and say this is change tubex, and change that in here as well to be our function name to be change tube X. Oh, I changed the wrong section, sorry. I want to change the name of the function, change tube X. And that'll be a lot more tied in here. It's clearer that it's actually doing that job. So if we run that now, we should be back to exactly the same situation as we were in before. So I'm going to create a new function now, which is going to do the job of choosing a random Y location. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to say, I'm going to create a new sub, and this is going to say change. I should probably make this top tube Y because we're going to have, why don't we just call it tube Y for now? Change tube Y. No, let's make it top tube Y. I'm changing my mind a lot here. Change top tube Y. Okay. And in this function, we're going to need to get the random number for it. Now, to do this, we use the math function. So I'm going to say math dot get degrees, get radians, and this one here is the one we want, get random number, which if we look on the right hand side, all we need to do is put in the maximum number it wants, and it will get a number between, as it says up here, 1 and whichever number we want. So get a random number between 1 and, well, we want it to appear somewhere on the screen. So why don't we for now, and we'll correct this later on, just make it the graphics window height, the height of the graphics window height. Now, what we'd like to do then is maybe we'll store this in a variable called random. So this is our random number. and it will get that random number and it will store it in this variable called random. And then the next thing we'll do as part of this function is to change top tube y to that value. So top tube y, so our top tube's y location is going to equal random. Okay, playing around a little bit here. At this point I could have just said the random number equals top tube y, but you'll see why I haven't in a short while. Once we've done that, we've finished our job. The beauty with this is next time we come to do our top tube y, to draw our shape in our while loop, the top tube y will have actually changed its number to be in a different place. Now, the only problem we've got at the moment is, of course, if we run this, that job never actually runs. And we need to think about when we want it to change its y position. Because one risk we could do, and we'll try it now, is if we changed it at all points through the while loop. So if I say change top tube y, and we run that, we just see that that shape starts dancing around, which isn't really what we wanted. We wanted it to be at one location all the way through and then change when it got back to the start. So how are we going to do that? Well, we could use the if statement that we've already used in the tube x, because actually if the tube x gets past the starting point, then we move the tube x back to the start, and then we'd also want to choose a random y. So I could just put in here change top tube y. Take it out of here, and now this is the really clever bit that you have to understand is, let's go through the loop. It draws our shape in the starting position off the right hand side of the screen. We then say run the change tube x. So change tube x, we change the x position of the tube, we have a little delay, and then we say if the tube is beyond the starting position, then we set the tube x back to the graphics window width so it appears over the right hand side, and we'll also change the top tube y, so we'll set a, which then runs this program, which chooses a random number for the variable top tube y. So when it comes back to run the while loop once more, the top tube y will have changed. So let's just test this out. Not simple stuff, certainly not the easiest to understand, but hopefully now when we go off the left hand side of the screen, we've come back at a random position, and it will stay there until, of course, we trigger that we're off the left hand side of the screen again. Now, bearing in mind this is our top tube, I'm not very happy with the locations which it's drawing at. The y location, which it's picking, which is, for example, this coordinate here, is between all these points. Now, the top tube, I actually want to see the bottom of the top tube. At the moment, I can only see the top of it. It's this part that should be appearing in our screen. So realistically, we need that to appear above this line somewhere. And this is where we need to think quite carefully about the location at which these will appear. And I think we'll draw that out in the next tutorial.